Hi, everybody. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you very much for joining us, the Boardroom Club, today. My name is Yossi Garmazi, second year MBA here at Cornell, and I'm joined here also by a good friend of mine and also my classmate, Alvaro Jimenez. Alvaro?
Pleasure to be here, Yossi.
Yeah, so today we are fortunate enough to interview Akash Nigam, the founder and CEO of Genies, a company that revolutionizing the world of digital experiences. Akash, thank you very much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, definitely. So, Akash, without further ado, we thought by asking you if you can start and tell us what led you to this entrepreneurial path. And specifically, I know that you had also other endeavors even before Genies. So, yeah, if you can start by telling us a little bit about it.
Yeah, when you're born and raised in the Bay Area, I feel like you're, of course, bitten by the entrepreneurship bug pretty early on. And I always kind of give this example. I played soccer my entire life, and growing up, when you were on any given team, you had your left forwards dad that was this VC, or right forwards mom that was this CEO, and so forth. And so when you're surrounded by so many people that are living and breathing and creating stuff within this landscape, of course, it's not to, it's impossible to evade even getting bitten by the bug. So, I think very early on, you kind of had this idea that you wanted to create, not necessarily like CEO or founder or whatever, but just like, I want to create, I want to build, I want to innovate. And so, journey started in high school, built a bunch of stuff there. Some things worked, one thing was okay, but I really enjoyed just the actual process and journey. And then went to college, created a bunch of apps there, and then finally one thing led to the next and landed on Genies.
Nice. That's so cool. And by the way, what was your position while playing soccer?
Right mid.
Ah, nice. I'm a center midfielder usually when I
Oh,
play.
number 10. Awesome.
Yeah, right
Good
there.
view of the field.
Definitely. So specifically, Akash, you started Genies in a time when metaverse even wasn't a big thing back then. What led you to choose and concentrate specifically on the metaverse before it was a big thing?
The original intention of the world was just trying to get people to understand we're going to get more digitally immersed over time. Like, we're not going to go backwards, right? It's like, we're not going to go to horses and carriages. Like, we're going to get more and more consumed by the internet and start to exist further and further online. And when we started to imagine different trends that would converge to make up the new internet, gaming, AI, mixed reality, like those were some of the big ones that came together. And the convergence of those trends equating to this new internet had us thinking about, well, how does one show up in the internet, right? So like, a prerequisite for one of the trends, AI, for example, we believe is an avatar. You're not going to chat back and forth all day long with just text. At one point, there's going to be a 3D asset that shows up and you're talking to an AI persona. Gaming, like gaming has become, everything is gamified at this point, but like experiences or mobile apps, like they all kind of merge into like this umbrella we call experiences. And when you think about the core of so many of the experiences, there is an avatar. And then number three is mixed reality. And you're not going to show up as like a floating username or a handle. You're going to show up as a 3D asset as well. And so when we thought about what this new internet was going to look like, and based on those three trends, we thought that the best investment was making a state-of-the-art avatar framework that enables people to be able to not just even generate their identity that's going to be relevant from one experience to the next in this new internet, but also being able to generate experiences around this avatar as well.
And we saw also that actually Genius has some very cool collaboration with people like Justin Bieber and Cardi B, and even like big corporation such as Universal Music, NBA, and MLB. And I guess it was very helpful and beneficial for the platform. Yeah, so if you can tell us a little bit more about this partnership, how they started, and yeah.
The way that these partnerships even came about in the first place was really the organic level of traction that we received from some of these organizations and the talent within these organizations really ended up spawning the organizations to want to have a formal relationship with us so that they can bring it to every single player or every single artist underneath those umbrellas. And like the way that a celebrity would actually end up leveraging an avatar, which was never our intention, was to get into the celebrity space in the first place, was very similar to our philosophy around why we think users will want an avatar, which is, there is a different mode of expression that comes from having an art style versus or through art rather than having a camera, right? With the camera, it's like I'm one-to-one Akash and everything is real world based versus there's a lot of imagination or, fictitious thoughts that I might have that I want to express that photo, video, and text don't justify. And a celebrity a lot of the time feels constrained around this likeness that they've currently built in this world. And they don't have the ability to express outside of that until they can almost get a mini version of themselves, an extension of themselves, to do things that their physical self maybe is not as on brand to be able to do, even though that is expressing something that is core and inner self to them. So anyways, I started off with a bunch of organic traction on Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat and so forth. And then it eventually led to those partnerships, like the big ones like UMG and WMG, and then the PAs at the time, because of the individual traction that we got.
Yeah, and I guess even now with the rise of AI, the avatar could be more lively than ever, right? With the rise of using of big LLM and such, the avatar could actually communicate it with yourself, right? And if you can tell us a bit more about the recent maybe development within Genies, I know that you have the Genies traits framework and the smart avatars that you publish as part of your blog.
Yeah, so I mean, like I can talk about smart avatars. So, like we said, one of the big trends is AI, right? And these AI personas are not going to exist as just username chats back and forth. And so we want to be able to give them personality as well. And so, everybody on Earth at one point we believe will have an AI persona. I don't think I'm saying anything too novel there. The question is, what is the best form of a persona to be able to leverage an LLM for utility? So there's a hyper-realistic version of Akash, which could just mimic exactly what I look like today. Very, hyper-realistic. Seems like a human. And I can use it maybe for commercials or, like maybe a Zoom call or whatever, right? Like that's in the future. However, when we think about the games themselves and something that can almost be your own mini Tamagotchi in many ways, the best framing that I can think of is actually almost like my GPT, like, my personal GPT. It's not ChatGPT, it's like my GPT. Knows everything about Akash inside and out, right? Knows like my tendencies, knows the little things. None of the data that you can currently capture on the internet today. Can a genie and all the experiences be a mechanism to be able to capture so much data about Akash, right? So if I have a mini version of myself, my smart avatar, my genie, and it's playing a bunch of games and it's talking to a bunch of smart avatars, we're collecting so much meaningful data about you that is then being stored in your avatar. So then this avatar can now then be used as your own personal GPT in many ways. And then you can think about the celebrities, Justin Bieber right now is limited in how many relationships that he builds uniquely with his fans. He has 200 million followers, let's say. All 200 million followers see the exact same Instagram post that Justin puts out. Nobody has a unique relationship with them. But if you can talk to the AI version of Justin Bieber, maybe all of a sudden he knows about your girlfriend, he knows about your family, he knows about the fight that you got into school yesterday. He knows about all those individual moments. He stores this as a global memory. And all of a sudden, Justin has now unlocked 200 million unique relationships and direct relationships with his fans, right? So our avatar framework specifically enables those types of connections and that type of expression.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I guess like going back maybe to the next question is all the NPC while you play all these games out there, because until now, when you play one of those games in PlayStation, there's those NPC when they said basically only the same thing all the time and just become a little bit maybe even repetitive. So do you think like Genies can even like enter this kind of world and maybe revolutionize the world of gaming?
Of course, right? Like all of these are all very popular topics, but like if you think about like the intersection of AI and gaming, right? Like having personalized gameplay and personalized experiences is really important. So there's the AI component in gaming, which is around creation. So being able to generate the game in its first place, but leveraging like something like, for example, our traits framework, the fact that a game developer or a creator can build against very specific personalities that unlock unique experiences, so that if I'm playing a game, it's very different than if Allison is playing a game, is very different than James is playing a game, even though we're downloading the exact same asset. Having the real-time development of the game design and also of the assets that work with the avatar framework or work within the game is what will make this really special, right? And that's totally where the world is heading. I think the biggest blocker is around costs and performance, right? Because like it is expensive to run a lot of this stuff on in runtime, specifically depending on the device, right? So like it's expensive to do that on mobile, but like if we start moving into mixed reality, then it's going to be a lot more expensive to do it even there, right? So there's levels to this, and I think generally speaking, like we'll figure it out over time. But it's going to require a ton of compute, and that's why that's where Nvidia and AMD and Qualcomm and all these different chip makers, of course, are getting their stock price from. So yeah.
Yeah, and how do you see specifically you talk about computing power, the recent maybe development within DeepSeek? Do you think it's good for a company like Genies, or
it's amazing, right? Because the costs come down. I think, look, anything that is open source allows you to be able to personalize your own experience, right? Like there's a lot of really cool things that we want to do with smart avatars, but it's very difficult to just use a closed system, right? And unless you're doing some deep integration or partnership with one of the AI companies that are currently closed, you're not going to have full control over the actual smart avatar experience, right? Like you have to have some level of partnership with them. However, if these companies became more open, that changes that. And then number two is if the costs come down, right, it makes smart avatars at scale a lot more profitable, depending on like how you end up pricing things. Now I know that there's, you know, the DeepSeek story was it was debunked in some ways, right? Or like there's theories out there debunking it in many ways, right? Like specifically today. And there's a pretty good hunch that I would say that there's some access to GPUs and what was initially reported, right? That being said, if you read through the technical papers, like there were really good breakthroughs, right? And like I think that generally speaking, of course, like China versus America and the way that people are, the competition between the two around AI is net positive for innovation, right? It's great. It just, I mean, like there's a competitive spirit around being able to discover the best technical solutions to create the best AI applications. And, you know, no longer is the competitive moat going to be around your model or performance benchmarks or anything like that, but it will be around the consumer application. And so, you know, that's where we feel like smart avatars and Genie specifically come into play.
Yeah, definitely. And competition is always good, specifically in this realm. And yeah, I have a bunch of other questions, but Alvaro is also some question that he would like to ask you. So Akash, thank you very much. And Alvaro, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Jesse. So Akash, we talked a lot about the practical applications that you have already in place for your solutions. And before I talk a little bit about the future of Genies, I wanted to ask you a little bit about where do you think that there's more potential for all of these digital avatars? Because before what you described seemed very similar to a digital clone, maybe of a person, right? So we know about digital clones for industrial applications. And we also know some applications that with these celebrities for a personal avatar that can be used by a celebrity. But where other would you think that there's potential for these applications? And I'm thinking about perhaps healthcare or advertising.
You know, there definitely is an opportunity for that. I think the truth is to me, that type of stuff is a bit boring. And like the way that we've created our avatar framework is hardcore for gaming and consumer experiences, not B2B. So not so much like I could do this Zoom and people will solve that problem, right? Like I think there are companies out there. I think one was called maybe Synthesis, or there's another company out there that is hardcore focused on like, hey, you know what? Akash can't be there for that meeting. You want to be able to do that video call. Great. Awesome. But, you know, it would be weird if I was trying to FaceTime you and a stylized character showed up. I'd be like, no, I'm just trying to talk to my friend. It'd be equally as weird if I'm playing a game and then your hyper realistic version of you showed up, right? And so I think there's a purpose for each of them. We have specifically created an avatar framework that is stemmed in two main mantras. One is anyone can create anything, and the second one is everything works with everything. So the first one speaks to our UGC roadmap. We want a 16-year-old to be able to come here, non-technical, create any type of avatar, game, experience, app possible. The second one speaks to interoperability, meaning that if somebody creates an anime experience, a Pixar experience, a hyper-realistic experience, a more character or stylized experience, they're all compatible with each other, right? And so it's been a 5-year process. It started in 2019 to be able to build on this tech stack. And so while I feel like we can support all of these use cases, because we want developers and creators to build a lot of this stuff, right? Like we have our own dev platform and so forth. The ones that we get most excited about specifically right now are actually around the gaming consumer, young 16, 17, 18-year-old type experiences.
Yeah, and it's an industry that is gaming is bigger than film and music put together. So obviously, I understand why you would focus on that area. I was just mentioning it because I was able to go into one of the Cornell treks to Korea and Japan, and in Korea we met a startup that had actually very similar activity to what you guys are doing, and they were particular in that healthcare space and also in the events, right? And they would show us work. What was amazing to me is that this is not the future. This is already existing. They were in CS earlier this year, and you could see, for example, in a hotel lobby, a digital clone of a real person that had that LLM behind it, and that could tell you particularly, okay, so your problems were these, or you need to go in this direction to that part of the hospital, etc. So, talking a little bit more about potential and the future of Genies, we just saw that you raised $250 million with investments from firms like Silver Lakes, and even Bob Iger himself invested and joined your board. So we wanted to know or ask you how this has helped you transform the business and how it shapes it moving forward.
I mean, like, look, the G's mission is, in many ways, it's trying to become the Apple of the next internet, right? Because what Apple does every single year is they come out with iOS 9, iOS 10, iOS 11, 12, 13, whatever. And they basically are saying, hey, we have defined the internet today as this, which is mobile first, read, write, interaction. And if you have an idea or a business that you want to create for the internet today, come to iOS 10, come to our latest dev kit of tools and tech, use these tools, these picks and shovels, and create your idea in your business. And that is a mobile app and it gets featured on the App Store, right? We're saying, hey, that we are coming towards the end of the internet era that featured the App Store. And there's going to be a new App Store. And we think the new App Store is going to be in the new internet at the convergence of AI and then gaming and then also mixed reality, right? And we're saying, okay, your mobile app is no longer going to be this thing that you go into your mobile phone, but it's actually going to be more of a interactive, immersive, AI avatar driven experience. Now, in order, your own Roblox, your own UGC Fortnite, right? Like everybody's going to have something like that. Okay. So what tools, what is the new iOS 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 will people need to be able to create those experiences? And that's where we come in, right? So in many ways, like, and by the way, Epic Systems, they have a vision 1-to-1 of this, right? Like they also believe the same thing. They're like, everybody's going to have their own Fortnite. Everybody's going to use UEFN and here's what the creation is going to look like and so forth. The question is, who's going to nail down the right timing? Who's going to get the right amount of traction of culture in the very beginning? Like that's up for debate. And so the resources have been used specifically to keep doubling down on our Genies OS 1, Genies OS 2, Genies OS 3, and signing up a lot of our first customers. And some of these, I mean, we have close to 12 deals that we're going to be announcing over the next 2 to 3 months. After 2 years of when we did raise our last financing, we came out with a blog post titled Farewell, where we said, we're not going to talk to no media. We're not going to talk to anybody on the outside world. It's just going to be us focusing with each other, heads down, doubling down on our core tech stack. As we start to come up for air, we're going to start signing people. So we just did over the last 3-4 months. So a lot of big news coming over the next 2 months or so. But that this has been a very pivotal era for us, right? Because typically companies don't have the privilege of, unless you're really early days, of just being heads down. That's the only thing I get to work on. Typically people are either fundraising or they're doing partnerships or they're doing marketing or whatever. We were just like coming into work and you get to build like the stuff that you keep dreaming of building all the time. And so we're excited to unveil it and unveil a lot of our first experiences too. But yeah, no, it's been great.
We're looking forward to those. And then to end this interview, this is a little bit of a series of shorter questions, a little bit less serious. So you mentioned that you like football. Do you have any other hobbies aside from that?
I have a lot of hobbies. So I always just like creating stuff in general. Like that is like my sport is actually just creating weird things and then throwing them on the internet and seeing if people like it. I actually have this thing called unnecessary disruptions. The irony is in the name itself. It's like you literally think of stuff that doesn't need to be disrupted at all. And then you're like, if I needed to disrupt it, what would it be? And then you go, we produce 1 or 2 prototypes and then we launch it on TikTok. And if people like it, then we go and produce like a massive amount more. And so like an example would be like the fork, like, no one's complaining about a fork. Like the fork's been around forever, but it's like, all right, if you were to make it something different, what would you do? So we came up with a finger fork, these things that are just attached to your fingers and you can eat that way. And like launched on TikTok, it sold out really quickly. So there's just like fun shit like that. Sports, music, working out, creating stuff, but like more than anything, just like creating stuff. I think that's what any of my hobbies boil down to.
Is there any good book or good movie that you've seen recently that you recommend?
Severance. Severance, like, yeah, I mean, it's the greatest show of all time. Season 2 just came out, so couldn't recommend that more. Nothing in terms of business context or tech context. I actually like every morning I read news, right? Like I love the news. I'm addicted to the news. But whenever I get time to do things that are like consumption that are non or tech and business related, I like them to be fictitious because I feel like that inspires imagination.
By the way, did you see that Severance at the live film location in New York City?
Yeah, I
Couple of
did.
weeks
I
ago.
did. It's so cool. So
Yeah, it
cool.
was super
I'm
cool.
excited. My girlfriend just came back from New York today, and I know Severance came out with their latest episode yesterday, so we're gonna watch it tonight, Severance 2. So I'm pumped. I've been itching to
Nice.
get behind the television and watch that one.
And if you weren't working at what you're doing right now, which is a technical startup, founding a company, what would you be doing?
Hopefully right mid for some like soccer team. If not that, yeah, I would hope doing something in the sports world would be ideal. But again, like if not that, then maybe maybe like a bartender in the middle of like nowhere, like in Antarctica or something, just in a village, something like that.
Okay, then let's say that you've been very successful your whole life, you sold or whatever, you retire, and now it's 10 years later, what are you doing 10 years from now?
I'll never retire. I'll
Never
literally
retire.
never retire. I will never. I love this stuff so much, and I just love creating it's like I feel like when you read our manifesto, it is all about how humans are born to create something, right? Like, and anything's creation. An act of service, you having a child, like you doing a bit, like you are always you're consistently making something. And no, I think till the day I die, I will be creating. So I don't think I could ever retire.
All right. Thank you so much for this is it for me, and back to you, Yossi.
Yeah, I have actually last question that you didn't answer so far. So what is your favorite football team?
It used to be Man City for a long. This is way back. This is when they had Adebayor and Silva. Like it was like
Nice.
way back in the day for sure. I'm not as consistently a supporter anymore for me to say I am a Man City supporter, but the OG was Man City. Before that was Tottenham too.
Nice. Yeah. Well, Spurs are not doing so good, but Man City have been like pretty solid the last few years.
For sure.
Hopefully they will get to shape. So Akash, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been really a pleasure.
For sure.
Yeah, rooting for you and for Genis.
Thanks so much, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye-bye.